Volkswagen was once king of diesel cars around the world, but it turns out everything they claimed about their cars were lies. And when the world found out what they were up to, it ended in billions of dollars of fines, countrywide bans of their cars, and for a few of the top executives, prison time. So let's dig into one of the largest automotive scandals in history and see how Volkswagen nearly got away with the perfect crime until a couple of college kids accidentally figured it all out. I'm Guff, this is Albon. Let's give away $1,000. Yes, that's right, we're giving away $1,000 to a random subscriber who drops a comment below, so don't forget to hit that button and drop us a line. Now, before we can dive into Volkswagen's rap sheet, we need to take a little history lesson on diesels. Now, if you're a European, diesels are probably part of your everyday life. Many countries in the EU still have up to 70% of new cars sold as diesel variants. But here in America, it's a totally different story. Diesel-powered cars just aren't cool. At least, that's been the public's perception since pretty much forever. Back in the 1960s and 70s, as the American highway system began to expand, more and more people were purchasing their very own cars. And their choices were pretty much gasoline-powered or nothing. And for the era, it made total sense. Diesel engines were loud, they were rough, and they were slow. So Americans opted for the smoother, more powerful gasoline engines in their daily drivers. Fuel economy be damned. But year over year, manufacturers refined the diesel engine to soften its rough edges and be better for both the planet and customers' wallets. The once sooty, black smoke-emitting diesel lumps soon became smooth, turbocharged, powerful, fuel-efficient motors. And for the average English or German citizen, their daily drivers went from 20 to 30 to 50 miles per gallon, all while being tremendously smooth and more than torquey enough to propel you down a dual carriageway. Yet despite that, no matter how much manufacturers quoted economy figures, the image of black smoke pouring out of tailpipes in the 60s and 70s undid any and all marketing for diesel cars in America. And then there's the government. America didn't have competitive tax incentives for buying diesel like many European countries did. So even though diesel engines were proven to last longer over time and cost less to maintain, in America, you were still paying more at the pump than the guy next to you filling up with 87. And choosing the instant gratification of a gasoline engine versus the long-term economics of a diesel engine is just the American way. And can you blame us? Gasoline engines are great. So be it because of publicity, money, politics, or logistics, diesel passenger cars just never became popular in America. But in the late 2000s, it seemed like all that was about to change because Volkswagen finally found a way to make diesel cool again. That is, until they shot themselves in the foot and murdered the American diesel car forever. By the mid-2010s, Volkswagen owned 70% of the US diesel car market. And it wasn't just dumb luck. They did it by intelligently marketing their TDI cars. TDI, or turbocharged direct injection, was Volkswagen Group's line of turbo diesel engines in VW and Audi cars. And nothing about them was particularly groundbreaking. Hell, the TDI name first appeared in 1989, and the modern motors weren't a far cry from the original. But fast forward to 2008, and VW found a way to reinvent their TDI technology without changing a single part on any of their cars. The Clean Diesel Marketing Campaign. 2008, as many of us remember, was a time of global economic crisis. Businesses worldwide were seeing record losses, especially in the automotive sector. And with sales dropping further and further over the years, VW needed to do something fast to keep the ship from sinking. To add insult to injury, there was a massive spike in oil prices in July of that year, and already struggling Americans had to second guess whether or not to fill up their own cars. But where the world saw an economic obstacle, VW's marketing team saw a growing opportunity. And so the Clean Diesel campaign was launched in America, with the intent of finally debunking all of the misinformation about diesels over the years. First, they told Americans about how diesels were actually low emissions, often producing less CO2 than gas engines in many cases. Of course, it turned out most Americans actually don't care about the environment. And so VW switched up their tactics and instead went directly for their pocketbooks. They began running ad campaigns proclaiming that their diesel cars can go up to 700 miles on a single tank. And they were right, the Volkswagen Passat TDI had an impressive range. And for those that still weren't convinced, in 2010 they broke a Guinness World Record by going 1,527 miles on a single tank of diesel. Then they won Green Car of the Year at the New York International Auto Show. And then in 2013 they broke broke another Guinness World Record by averaging 77.99 miles per gallon, the highest MPG ever recorded in a non-hybrid car. Volkswagen was pulling out all the stops, and it was working. Post-recession, money was tight for many Americans, and people's ears would always perk up when you said the word saving. So sales of TDI Jettas, Passats, and Beetles were soaring in the USA, and VW was raking in the cash. And then in 2015, Volkswagen released their pièce de résistance, their now famous marketing campaign, The Old Wives' Tale.
Do you like cougars?
They employed the Golden Sisters, 3 elderly women who went viral after reacting to a particularly famous Kim Kardashian video. And their ad campaign was simple. The 3 sisters sat inside of a TDI Volkswagen and hilariously bickered over its misconceptions, debunking every single popular diesel myth in 15 to 20 seconds. It was truly the pinnacle of Volkswagen's automotive ad campaign. And all of it would have worked too if it wasn't for those meddling kids. Wait a minute. What kids? Well, you see, the ad campaign was abruptly pulled from TV and internet by Volkswagen, and rumors began to swell that there was an absolute hellstorm brewing behind closed doors at Volkswagen headquarters. All because 3 college kids at West Virginia University uncovered something strange about Volkswagen's diesel cars. Something that would go on to be one of the largest automotive scandals in history. Almost as scandalous as this segue to our sponsor, Manscaped.
Chronic smelliness is a condition that can take a lot out of you.
When you're smelly, where do you want to go? Nowhere. When you're disgusting, who do you want to see? No one. Looking like a feral animal hurts in so many ways. Take a hard look at yourself. And no, Manscaped can help. A regular round of Manscaped's Lawnmower 4.0 body trimmer can help tame your unsightly body hair. And the lawnmower's advanced skin-safe technology reduces nicks and cuts even on the most sensitive regions of the body. You'll start seeing results in as little as 1 trim. And it won't just be you. Your friends and loved ones will finally see the real you again. And it won't just be from a 10-foot distance. With the Performance Package 4.0, you get Manscaped's Crop Preserver deodorant and Crop Reviver spray. Crop Preserver keeps your nether region smelling fresh all day. And the Crop Reviver is an anytime spritz that can keep even the sickliest smells at bay. It's time to stop looking and smelling like a 3-week-old garbage bag and start feeling like the confident, well-groomed stud that you always knew you could be. And for a limited time, you can get the Shed Travel Bag and Manscaped anti-chafing boxer briefs for free. So hit that link in the description and leave the body odor behind with Manscaped. West Virginia University has a little department called the Alternative Fuels, Engines, and Emissions Department, and they were awarded a contract for testing clean diesel cars. It was a pretty typical type of testing scenario, and so 3 students were tasked with conducting these tests on a variety of different diesel cars. A Volkswagen Jetta TDI, a Volkswagen Passat TDI, and a BMW X5 diesel. The goal was to see what the real-world emissions were from these diesel cars, to see how far the diesel engine had come in terms of environmental impact. So first things first, they took all 3 cars to get tested on a dyno using standard CARB protocols. CARB being the California Air Resource Board. The cars were driven on the dyno through some standard speed ranges, and the students placed equipment in the tailpipes to sniff out harmful carbon and nitrogen emissions. And of course, all 3 cars passed with flying colors. Nothing out of the ordinary. So next up was the road test, mostly just to verify the results from the dyno. Same deal, standard speed ranges, equipment in the tailpipes, etc., etc. So the Volkswagen Jetta went first, and it failed horribly. Strange, but testing anomalies do happen once in a while. So they kept driving to make sure they had enough data. They drove all the way from San Diego to San Francisco, but still the car failed. So they kept driving all the way up to Seattle. But still, no matter what they did, the road test results were nothing like the results they got on the dyno. Okay, so perhaps maybe there was something wrong with this Jetta. So they got into the Volkswagen Passat and they took it on the same battery of tests. And after the entire cycle of testing, the Passat failed. Okay, at this point they thought there has to be something wrong with the equipment. 2 cars failing in a row, both with much higher emissions than the dyno test, it was just unlikely. And so in a last-ditch effort, they grabbed the BMW X5 and took that out in the same battery of tests. And it passed. Its emissions results were exactly the same as what they tested on the dyno. Basically, the results that they were expecting from the Jetta and the Passat. 2 Volkswagens, both producing much more emissions than they were supposed to, yet somehow both running clean on the dyno test. It was a puzzling result, and so the students decided to share their information with the California Air Resource Board, who standardized these tests. The Air Resource Board was uneasy with these results, and so they decided to take matters into their own hands and redo all of the tests. And it didn't take long for them to discover something that perhaps everyone suspected, but nobody was brave enough to say out loud. Something that was too big for even the state of California to deal with. And so they brought in the EPA, and together prepared for an attack on a car maker unlike any that came before it. September 2015. By this point, there was already news spreading that something big was going down at the EPA. And then Volkswagen Auto Group was hit with 2 major lawsuits. One case was with the United States and the state of California, and the other was with the US Federal Trade Commission. The findings in these cases were nothing short of groundbreaking. Now, everyone knew that diesel engines got better MPG than their gasoline counterpart, but the downside to that MPG rating was the higher nitric oxide emissions. That's the stuff that's wrecking your air quality and making LA look like it's on minimum draw distance. And so to mitigate those nitric oxide emissions in their cars, Volkswagen hired out Mercedes-Benz to implement Mercedes-Benz's BlueTech technology into Volkswagen's diesel cars. BlueTech was Mercedes' trademark name for their selective catalytic reduction system. Putting it simply, Mercedes had the answer to nitrogen emissions in diesel cars, and Volkswagen was just a wire transfer away from getting it. The only issue? Volkswagen didn't want to cough up the money for the full implementation of BlueTech. They argued that not only was it too expensive, but it was also too high maintenance and took up too much space in their cars. Reasonable excuses, sure, but without Mercedes, they were going to have to develop the technology themselves. And so, they did, and it sucked. Their system could effectively manage emissions, but only at a huge sacrifice of fuel economy. But those MPG numbers were non-negotiable for VW. Selling diesels in the US was already an uphill battle, and taking away their biggest selling point from the clean diesel campaign would have meant a massive hit to sales. So instead of going back to the drawing board or calling up Mercedes again, they took option 3, just lie. Lie to the EPA, lie to CARB, lie to the consumers. And so Volkswagen engineers programmed the engine computers in TDI cars to detect when the car was on a dyno in an emissions test. And as soon as your TDI car detected that the emissions scanner was plugged in, that sneaky little engine computer would automatically program itself to a lower horsepower, lower MPG emissions compliant mode. And of course, it would pass the emissions test with flying colors. But the moment you pulled off of that dyno, the ECU would automatically reprogram itself to the high horsepower, high MPG, high nitric oxide emissions mode. And thus the customer would be happy with their fast, fuel-efficient diesel engine, and the regulators would be happy with their supposedly compliant test results. It would be totally fine, as long as they didn't get caught. It sounds crazy, right? How could a global automaker like Volkswagen even think to do something as sketchy as this? The answer, as usual, was money. But the story doesn't end there. On September 18th, 2015, after Volkswagen was sued, the EPA publicly announced that all 2009 to 2015 TDI cars that were affected must be recalled immediately. And because this was a huge public announcement, 2 days later, Volkswagen had to admit to the world why. You see, at this point, people outside of the EPA and CARB had no idea what was going on. But then VW's top brass had to come out and explain everything. Their stock plummeted 20%, and their CEO, Martin Winterkorn, resigned immediately. 482,000 cars were recalled in the USA alone. Jettas, Beetles, Golfs, Passats, hell, even the Volkswagen manufactured Audi A3. And that number was just the start. After the US recall, Volkswagen had to admit that they sold 11 million cars with these defeat devices installed worldwide. And if that wasn't enough, Volkswagen was forced to hire a third party to internally investigate the scandal themselves, in an effort to appear more transparent and honest. And it turns out, Volkswagen's own investigation revealed that not only were they non-compliant on nitrogen emissions, but they were non-compliant on carbon emissions as well. The EPA was, of course, not pleased. And VW was then forced to offer buyback options for any owners with TDI models that were affected. And depending on the year and model, owners of TDI cars were subject to buybacks from $12,000 to $44,000. My brother had a Passat TDI during this whole scandal, and they bought it back from him more than he even paid for it in the first place. And since many cars hugely depreciated after the news, Volkswagen had to offer loan forgiveness programs for anyone who was upside down on their car. The bill for Volkswagen, of course, only continued to grow. And by the end, Volkswagen was forced to pay $2.7 billion to fund various projects across the country to reduce nitrogen emissions. One of which was the Electrify America EV charging network. All in all, the Dieselgate scandal ended up costing Volkswagen a total of $34.69 billion. But hell hath no fury like the Environmental Protection Agency, and money alone wouldn't be enough to pay for Volkswagen's crimes. The EPA swore that people were going to be put behind bars. James Liang, an engineer at Volkswagen, was the first to face criminal charges. Liang was the engineer that helped develop the software defeat device that modified emissions output, and his role in the scandal landed him 40 months in prison. Oliver Schmidt, head of Volkswagen's environmental and engineering department in Michigan, was next. Schmidt ended up striking a deal with US prosecutors and admitted that he had conspired to defraud US regulators and violated the Clean Air Act, which got him a sentence of 7 years in prison. But that wasn't all. This scandal went all the way up. Because then there's Martin Winterkorn, the Volkswagen CEO, that resigned. The United States charged him with conspiring to cover up the diesel emissions scandal, and he's currently facing trial back home in Germany for the same charges. There's a handful of others that were indicted as well, but the gist of it is that this scandal didn't just end with a corporate slap on the wrist. Volkswagen lost billions of dollars. People served and are serving real jail time. And perhaps worst of all, Volkswagen's actions might just be killing you. MIT conducted research on Dieselgate over the following years, and they concluded that the 2.6 million affected cars sold in Germany would be responsible for 1,200 premature deaths across Europe, all because of the harmful emissions that these cars were putting out. And the 482,000 cars sold in the US, that's enough nitrogen emissions to make about 60 people die 10 to 20 years sooner than they should have. If you're curious, I'll link to the study right below the like button. But where does that leave diesel cars today? Volkswagen technically wasn't wrong all those years ago. The perception of diesel cars in America was just plain false. Diesel engines can be environmentally friendly for what they are, and diesel engines can get better MPG than gasoline counterparts while still packing a punch in the performance department. But it just turned out that a Volkswagen diesel can't do both at the same time. Outside of trucks, there isn't a single new diesel car in the United States today. And in a time when fuel prices still create major anxiety in the hearts of American families, and alternative fuel choices are often talked about but never realized, it's all the more sad that an alternative option like diesel that has been proven overseas for decades was exploited and burned to ash by yet another case of corporate greed. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment below to win the giveaway. You can find us on Instagram or Discord at the links below. And be sure to check out Manscaped at the link in the description. I'll see you guys in the next one.